When you're dragging ass out of bed, the hairs must up on your head. You picture the 20th Maine, and you're happy once again. Fight the battle against being slow with Little Brown Top Row.
This special episode is brought to you by our first coffee brand, Little Ground Top.
Trademark.
Roasted to perfection by our friends at Bantam Roasters. Take the high ground every morning with a piping hot cup of Addressing Gettysburg's Little Ground Top.
Trademark.
That features notes of cacao, wildflowers, and toasted sugar. I even taste a bit of black pepper in mine. You'll look forward to your cup of Addressing Gettysburg's Little Ground Top.
Trademark.
Every morning. So grab your multiple bags today at addressinggettysburg.com/cafe or drop into Bantam Roasters at 82 Steinware Avenue across from the Dobbin House during your next visit to Gettysburg. And hey, now that Little Round Top is open, imagine enjoying a thermos of Addressing Gettysburg's Little Ground Top while checking out the view from the hill. Outstanding. That's addressinggettysburg.com/cafe or Bantam Roasters at 82 Steinware Avenue.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios, you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, ho, ho, ho. Happy holidays, everybody, and welcome to this special holiday free-for-all of Addressing Gettysburg. And we're trying something that we've never done before. And sometimes when you do something like that, it can be nerve-wracking. And so we could only do this with a consummate professional as our guest, the great Garry Adelman. Hello, Garry. Welcome.
Hey, Matt. Hello, everybody.
And today, what we're doing is we're trying to do just a kind of a free for all. You said I'm up for whatever, and I said I like that attitude, Garry. I like that attitude. So what we're going to do is this, folks. We've opened the phone lines, and we know it's in the middle of a work day for a lot of you, so you might not be able to call. So here's what we're going to do. Call in. The phone number is 717-420-1978. It's in the description. Call in, and once I see you come into the queue, I will call on you right away, okay? We're not going to make you wait. If you're in the chat, in the comments, you got to do a super chat because I'm not going to see it with all the other comments that are going on. So the super chats stand out. They go into a separate little box, and I'll see them. If you have a question or a comment or whatever, and you want it to be read, put it there, and then we'll do our best to answer it and everything for you. But otherwise, I hope you enjoy the conversation. For the first time, as producer, we have Mikey B in the back there. Mike Bariski, how are you doing, Mikey? Oh, I'm sorry. I should probably open your microphone.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
That's what it's like working with me. I forget. You are running the cameras back there. Are you nervous?
I'm only nervous working with you.
But that is very wise.
I'd say no, I'm not that nervous.
Okay, good.
I'll be okay.
So Mike and I went through our brains. We picked out a couple of topics to kind of prime the pump with Garry here, and then hopefully that'll spawn something in your brain that you will then use to call in and ask Garry. Okay, so that sounds so great. I'm so happy you agree, ladies and gents, and let's start talking to Garry now. So Garry, you said earlier before the show that you had a bone to pick with me, a fun bone. So let's get that out of the way.
Oh my God, here I sit with my pretzels and almonds and banana and orange, and it's about that, of course. Like, here you are recently on a show. I listen. I love the show. And there was this buff waiter, and you found out that he was a vegan, and you were like, there must be some other answer. There must be some reason how you could be buff or energetic or some of this.
Yes.
So here in front of you is your most energetic guest,
yes.
I imagine.
Yes.
Pushing 60.
Yeah.
Who eats that way. And
right.
You and your guest who was on that day are still looking for some magical explanation as to why this works. So
we can't figure it out.
Think about the buff waiter and the.
Well, there must be something else you do.
Well, I do exercise.
Yeah, of course. No, but I guess the argument would be that because you're a vegan, you have the energy to exercise.
I'm sure they support each other.
Yeah, of course. When you eat the typical American diet, you have no energy.
Yep.
Because it's bad for you.
Here I'm agreeing with you.
Right.
And what I'll say too is I walk 10 or 20,000 steps a day, every day, in part because I know I want to be able to do this in another 10 or 20 years, like the outdoor tours and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's very deliberate because I can feel it sapping away as I age. It's beautiful.
I'm telling you, and I'm younger than you, and I'm probably in the shape that most people your age are in, and you're in the shape that people half my age are in. So, I mean, good for you. And I'm glad it works. Listen, I have nothing against the vegan diet if it works for you. I had a friend who switched to that, and like a lot of his health problems cleared up, you know. I have a problem with the people who are like political vegans, you know what I mean? Like it's like they won't talk to you, they won't go near you, they scrunch their nose if you eat a burger, you know, those type of people.
That's not me.
No, I know that's not you, and that's why I can respect your veganism.
Thank you, sir. Bone has been picked. We're good.
Yeah, good. All right, good. All right, so we have a few things that we want to talk about. And, you know, you are expert on many things, really, about the Civil War, specifically the Battle of Gettysburg, and more specifically, down yonder on the south end of the field and all the things going down there. Of course, you wrote the Devil's Den book with Tim. Are we at 30 years or 25?
Yeah, we're coming up on 30, but yeah, it was
past
1997 is when it came out.
I was just listening the other day to the show that we did from the Farnsworth house with you and Tim.
Wow.
And that was a lot of fun. I didn't remember, I don't remember anything about these. Yeah, I mean, you understand, right?
I know.
Yeah. Okay. So once you're done with something, you forget everything you say or do. And so I had a long drive coming home from Thanksgiving, and I was going through old shows, and I saw that one. I was like, oh, let me listen to that and see how that was. And it sounded like it was a lot of fun.
It was a blast.
I think we had fun that night, right? I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So we got to do something like that again. But we talked about the Devil's Den, and then we were talking how it was coming up on the 25th anniversary. So I think we're at year 27. I think that was 2 years ago when that happened. All right. So Devil's Den, but also Little Round Top, the wheat field, the whole thing there. So we have some questions or topics, really. Sure. And I think this is something that helps me for certain. And Mike, I left your mic open. If you want to join us at any point, just jump in. It certainly helps me, and maybe it'll help people who are new to the study of the battle. And that is the whole mix-up with Law's Brigade and Robertson's Brigade as they're coming through. Because we're going to have this thing where some of Law's Brigade goes up Big Round Top, and some of it goes towards Devil's Den, and then some of Robertson's brigades go around Devil's Den and up the... What the hell happens? Why does this happen? Kind of walk us through that, if you will.
Yeah, I think there's 3 points. So first of all, for those of you all who are trying to understand this stuff, and I learned this from Tim in probably 1991. He's like, memorize the order of battle by brigades. I thought this was an exercise in memorization. Little did I know that would lead me to understand the battle better. Because then you realize that the battle's really fought by brigades and everything like that. And hence your question. The first question you launch with is this. So
yeah, wait, just pull the mic closer to your mouth.
On July 2nd, 1863, you warned me to do all this.
I know, I did.
Sitting still is my toughest thing. So on July 2nd, 1863, the Confederate attack on July 2nd, the largest attack at Gettysburg, bigger than Pickett's Charge, 16,000 soldiers will attack. The first division to attack, of course, is John Bell Hood's division. He's got 4 brigades with Law and Robertson up front, and then with Benning and Anderson, all Georgians, behind them, okay? Those 4 are going to move forward, first the first 2 and then the next 2, okay? Later in the attack, they're going to start attacking more 1 brigade at a time. But at this time, Law and Robertson move together, okay? You're probably aware that there are conflicting orders here. You've got this thing to attack up the Emmitsburg Road, and therefore there are elements of the Confederates who expect that they're going to reach the Emmitsburg Road and then make a left turn or wheel to the left, and then they're going to attack an unhinged Cemetery Hill, okay? Of course, there are others who are being shot at by U.S. sharpshooters and skirmishers and whatnot along the way who know if they turn that way, not only will they just roll rocks down on them, but that you're going to expose your flank to a destructive fire. I mean, this is a heavy skirmish line and very adept skirmishing because they're sharpshooters. They know what they're doing. So that's the first split. Because some take to the road and some are dealing with the sharpshooters and heading straight forward, they split. So you've got, in other words, half of Robertson's brigade with, from what I would estimate is the 3rd Arkansas and 1st Texas starting to go up the Emmitsburg Road a little bit. And then you've got the 4th and 5th Texas hanging with Law's brigade on their right, if this continues to make sense.
Yep.
This is quickly realized, And then the leftmost elements of Robertson realize what they've done, and they turn straight again. Okay. But now there's a gap between them, and that's going to lead to point number 2. But is that kind of clear?
Yeah.
Okay. In the meantime, John Bell Hood is wounded, of course, right around this time, and nobody takes command of that division for the rest of the day until the fighting is essentially over. Evander Law, and this was his middle name, was a big quiz at the Gettysburg Nerd Quiz last summer. So everybody out there, you should know who Evander M. Law is. So we'll leave that out there, though. We'll let the listeners throw that out.
Don't blurt it out, Mike, because it's on the tip of my tongue.
Okay,
and
good.
I used to know this like very easily, but go ahead.
We are in a studio with 3 people who have taken the Gettysburg Licensed Battlefield Guide test.
Yeah, but only one. Oh, no, 2 passed. I'm the loser. Oh, you didn't pass?
No, I didn't pass.
Oh, but you
I
took.
didn't make it to the next.
No, but you were 14 when you took it, and you got a 70.
I did, and I didn't cry, and you cried. So that's a big difference.
and this, by the way, is we don't know if you haven't passed yet, Matt.
Yeah,
You're
but we're pretty.
assuming
We're pretty certain.
Okay. In any case,
thank you, though, Garry.
Law doesn't exercise command over the division. Okay. He later claims to have thrown Benning's brigade into this sort of gap. Okay. What actually happens is that as these disparate elements start moving forward, they're taking terrible fire from the 4th New York Independent Battery, known as Smith's Battery. Okay, Smith is shooting at them and whatnot. And what most people don't know is that Law on his right has 2 regiments. Everybody thinks they know Law's right regiments. Of course, it's the 15th Alabama and the 47th Alabama. But the 44th and 48th Alabama were originally on the right. When they somewhere around the Slider Farm, the 44th and 48th were detached to move behind the brigade and to presumably deal with Smith's Battery. That's when the 44th and 48th Alabama sort of plug that gap, and they end up in the slaughter pen and hitting directly at the rocks of Devil's Den, and the leftmost elements of which charge up next to the triangular field, deliver flank fire to the 124th New York as they're charging down into the field, and then capture some officers of the 4th Maine, and I believe became the first of 3 different elements to claim the capture of Smith's Battery. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 1 is they split. Number 2, Law deliberately moves some other people over to Devil's Den. And what this sets up is a regiment of Arkansans and Texans next to them. So that's half of Robertson's brigade, followed by 2 regiments of Law's brigade, followed by 2 regiments of Robertson's brigade, and followed by 3 regiments of Law's brigade. So nobody's in charge of the division, and no brigade commander has his brigade together. Generally speaking, it seems like Law sort of stayed with his rightmost elements, and Robertson sort of fought around Devil's Den. I'm going to bring another, thing into it as well, but does that make sense?
Yeah, but Law, when Hood's out, Law is in command of the division.
Correct. Law is, but there's no
We're not
evidence.
there yet?
No.
Oh, okay.
Hood is wounded, and somebody, presumably, we don't know a lot about this, presumably rode to Law and told him he's in command, but the key is that there is no evidence of Law exercising command until the fighting was over for that day.
Right.
That's the important part.
Okay.
So whether he knew or anything, he didn't exercise any command.
So on paper, command devolves to him, but that doesn't mean he took it until later in the day when everything calms down.
Well put. And
Thank
he
you.
did write a Battles and Leaders article later, and he wrote about the advance, and he wrote about throwing Benning's Georgia Brigade into the gap. Now, remember, while all this is happening, Benning's brigade was supposed to follow Law over, presumably now, toward Little Round Top, and Anderson's brigade of Georgians were going to follow Robertson toward Devil's Den. Just imagine 1,300 Georgians behind the Confederates attacking Little Round Top, and imagine another, even larger Confederate force showing up behind, Robertson's Texans and Arkansans at Devil's Den. Of course, they shifted to the left, and Benning followed Robertson. And I'm sorry for anybody, this is your first episode, and you don't really know this battle that well. I'm sorry.
Right.
This is at least
you
one of
should
the
have
fights.
like a map book with you or something.
Leno's
like
map book or
yeah.
something like that. But that meant that Benning followed part of Law, I guess, over toward Devil's Den, and Anderson was on his left, which then began the real fight for the wheat field.
So, right. Okay. So then those guys, Anderson, Robertson, that whole crew, they're over by Devil's Den. Now, one of the other things that Mike and I talked about when you go out there and if you get a chance, ladies and gentlemen, this is actually 2 other topics that we brought up. I'm going to squeeze them into one, Mike. Here's how it's done. Okay. If you go out onto the battlefield, this is the time of year to go. Correct, Mike? Garry?
There's no bad time. Every time affords its advantages. But if you want to understand the field,
that's what I mean.
Like, you're not exactly seeing what they saw, but if you want to understand the field, this is the time.
Right. So this is the time to go to get an idea of the lay of the land. Okay. If you go out to where the Timbers farm is, or if you just go down along the old trolley path and you look up at Devil's Den, maybe not if the trolley path, you got to go to the Timbers farm area because you got to be at somewhat elevated. But and you look at Devil's Den, it looks like it's one continuous slope up to the top of Little Round Top. And the only way you would know that it's not, and that it dips down before it goes up again, is if you go there. But not every Confederate commander or soldier certainly was able to go there before they attacked. So did that surprise any Confederates when they got to the top of Devil's Den and said, oh, there's more to this area than we thought?
Yeah. This is super important that you bring up. First of all, I want to say that, I say why the troops split. I want to say, and I'm not looking at the comments or anything like that, but Hood was overheard to say by somebody, maybe it was Colonel Work said, very well, when I'm under fire, I will have a digression. Maybe it was Work who said he'll say that. So maybe that's why they split, that it wasn't because of the sharpshooters. They were intending to go to Big Round Top all along. Secondly, I agree. When you look from both parts of Warfield or Seminary Ridge, it's hard to tell whether Devil's Den and Little Round Top are connected. We now know this, but when you're looking at them, especially face on, like from near the Texas Brigade Monument or Latham's Battery, it looks like one hill. Henry L. Benning experienced just that. He thought he was attacking the enemy's main line. And by the way, so it was, because there weren't yet troops really fortified on Little Round Top at the time. But he seemed to think that was the main line, that it was that hill, and then there just happened to be another one behind it later. In other words, he was confused by it. Remember, we're going to spend more time in this studio than a lot of the soldiers at Gettysburg spent on the battlefield, either before they died or before they were taken off wounded or something like that. Right. So we got to keep that in mind. But Benning was at least one of them that was confused. What I'll say is, having both led tours, done it with West Point, and done even a live stream walking down there the Confederates could have no idea of how terrible that terrain is. It's some of the worst terrain at Gettysburg, like sort of behind the like Bushman Farm and Slider, and between there and Devil's Den. You've walked it.
Well, yeah, and that was another thing we were talking about. Also, the Rose Farm. When you go to, like, down into Rose Woods, that's like a bowl. So we're talking about Robertson and Anderson in front of Devil's Den, and then they're pushing their way towards what would be known as the wheat. Well, it is the wheat field, but the bloody wheat field. But in between is Rose's Woods, and it's like you're in a bowl.
And the open spot next to Rosewoods to the south of it is awful. And that's that sort of triangular field opposite the triangular field and between Slider and Devil's Den. It's just terrible. Now, what's important to know is, it was interesting the way you put it, hardly any Confederate commanders got to see what this ground was like before they attacked. The only ones who did were the ones in the attack, and it must have been a surprise when they saw the, glistening bayonets and guns and the bluecoats all on top of Devil's Den, which looks like its own mountain, only to then realize that you've got Little Round Top behind it. Now, all the Confederates, because there's all this talk about Captain Johnston, and you've got Longstreet's thing, and Hood talks about sending his, quote, picked Texas scouts out that way. None of them got to this area. Even if you're generous to them, none of them could have seen how terrible this was. It was a surprise to those who got there, and it's probably a surprise to anybody who has tried it, especially in the summer, to do it, because it's just awful.
It is.
It really
it is just awful. Real quick here, we have a super chat from Calvin, and he says, would love to see some Michigan content in the future. More Michiganders were at Gettysburg than just Custer's cavalry and the 24th. Who of all the Michigan troops would you say are the ones you find most interesting?
Well, because I'm a South End guy, I like the 16th Michigan, much maligned, fell back in part during the fight for Little Round Top. Of course, I'm a massive 24th Michigan fan. They certainly got it done. They lost more than any other regiment, for the Union at Gettysburg, and fighting against the Confederate regiment, who lost the most, the 26th North Carolina. That was for you, Lindblade. And, there are other Michigan troops that, the 1st Michigan fighting on the Stony Hill that don't get a lot. But I guess I go back to being a 16th Michigan guy. I also like the fort named after Commander Norval Welsh, who will die the following year, and there will be a fort next to which the trust has saved a lot of land. at the Final Breakthrough area, kind of Battle of People's Farm, from which they launched the Final Breakthrough in April of 1865. So I guess I'll say the 16th.
Okay. All right, good. I like that. All right. Now, when we were talking about Rose's Woods, Rose Hill, do we call it Rose Hill or not?
We want everything at Gettysburg to have a name. And is that a wig over there? What's going on there?
It is a wig.
It is.
Yes.
I could take
Sometimes
it looks a little like what Pedro wore in Napoleon Dynamite, like a Roman warrior or something like that. I kind of like it.
Yeah, it sort of is. Yeah.
So sorry.
I always have props
Good.
for stupid things.
Well, I'm interested in props. Okay, so we want things to have names. Like, we want rocks to have names. And some of us try to name these things. Bennings Knoll. I'm still trying to get it to catch
Some people etched a name into the rocks.
Yes, indeed.
So,
and then there's other rocks that appear in photographs and we want them to have names. So, it depends which hill you mean. And then it depends on did the early burial people call it Swisher's Field, or did they call it Rose's Pasture, or things like that? So
right.
If you're talking about the hill near the Timbers Farm, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, like Brook Avenue.
Yeah, I'm not aware that is called Rose Hill or anything.
Okay.
It's sort of Rose's Woods, and I'm not sure if the height
so it's just
is
part
called
of
anything.
Right. Well, so that's what we were kind of differentiating. You got the woods, part of which is the hill.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of when we were talking. But one of the things that Mike brought up, and I'll let Mike elaborate more on this, though, is the Elliott map.
Yes.
Okay. And what the Elliott map shows. Michael, go ahead.
No, we were just kind of curious of the fact of the accuracy of that map when it comes to, that's a very wooded area. Now, it kind of makes sense. It's a very depressed area. But it looks like, based on that map, that was one of the highest concentration of burials of Confederate troops anywhere on the battlefield. So why would it have been Rose Woods? Was it just convenient with the amount of casualties that occurred in that area?
Yeah, so a couple of things there. One, yes, it is, as Tim Smith would say, the costliest or the bloodiest farm in all of American history, the Rose Sherfy tract, because in 3.5 hours, you've got 9,000 casualties. As much as people, and I'm a big Franklin fan, just shot some video there and everything. They have 9,000 in a whole battle with a whole lot more people involved than were involved in this particular fight right there. So it is particularly bloody. It's very concentrated. And people say 6,000 killed and wounded in and around the wheat field, but you got 6,000 killed and wounded. That's 1,500, dead and everything like that. In any case, I've taken this all together and concluded, and I'm a huge fan of the Elliott map.
Yeah.
Massive, both Gettysburg and Antietam. But, it seems like that one's exaggerated. The number of dead on the map where they just start making hash marks, It's too many. And even as many as there are, and if you line them up head to toe, you still can't walk across the wheat field without touching the ground.
Right.
Yes, I've done the math.
Have you? That's the thing about that part of the field, though, on the Elliott map, is that, and this particular section that we're talking about is kind of contested and debated, right, by historians, because the ground there is wooded and rocky. It would be very hard to dig one grave, let alone 900 or whatever it claims are buried there. What is the number it's saying?
I don't remember. I wrote them. I counted them and wrote them all down on a piece of paper, but I use that on tours. I don't have it in my head.
Okay, all right.
But I'll say this, from what I've read about the burial crews at Gettysburg, where you think it's not rocky, there's rocks 4 inches under the ground that you couldn't see.
Right.
But there are obviously spots you could do it. Plus, they weren't always going for deep graves. So if you could get, 8 inches of earth on top of somebody, that might help to quell the public danger. So, I don't think there are that many buried there. I think it's exaggerated. But,
Do you think there could have been that many buried in the field just outside the woods, and maybe it's mismarked on the map?
Yeah, of course, we have pictures of how many dead were outside the woods at one part.
Yeah.
We're still trying to figure out who they are, who they would have been. I think it's more Anderson's guys than Kershaw's guys and Semmes's guys, actually. But that's based on the burial, accounts that I've read. And I'm not sure if that's a popular opinion. So I do tend to think people do things where it's easier. Of course, when you got to drag somebody 50 yards, 100 yards, and then there's 100 of them, you might consider burying them in a low point and putting stuff on top of them at that point.
Yeah,
it's just really
just
hard
sloppy
to tell.
graves. Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, so just looking at the map, it shows, it says 400 in those woods, with 500 kind of higher up the hill. Yep.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you. So 400, not as crazy as I had it in my head. In my head, it was like 1,500 or some ridiculous number, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the one thing that now you've been a guide for what 30 years?
Yes, I just finished my 30th season, or arguably my 30th season.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but I'm going to assume that you were a Gettysburg enthusiast long before you became a guide.
Absolutely obsessed.
Okay.
And I thought it would eventually wear off. I'm no less obsessed now than I was 30 years ago.
Well, okay, so then that's I'm glad you said eventually wear off, because my question is, what is the one either part of the battlefield or regiment or figure, whatever, that has not worn off? The excitement you get learning about this person, place, thing is just as fresh as it was when you were first discovering it.
Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting distinction, because what I will say is I'm as into it or more into it than I was back then. But that initial enthusiasm of seeing Little Round Top for the first time or coming to understand it, to me, I suppose it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you know about something, the more you have ability to picture it. So therefore, I'm going to go with those Union units and the Confederates attacking them at the height of the Battle of Devil's Den. So I'm not going to do one, but the 99th Pennsylvania, the 4th Maine, the 1st Texas, and the 44th Alabama, like some of those are the ones that I'm endlessly fascinated with, because I think I can picture it the best. And I've only had 3 Civil War dreams in my life.
Really?
And one of them was I was in straight up at the position of the 99th PA near the end of the fight. So maybe that's why too, because I actually got a visualization and I was actually wounded. It was like, by the way, I don't know, this shows what kind of people we are. Like, it was awesome. Like, I wanted it to never end, because it
was exhilarating, right?
Yeah, you never get to have dreams like this. And I woke up and wrote it down and everything like that. But I would say it's still this part. It doesn't mean it's more important. It's just the one that I've studied the most. And therefore, it's endlessly interesting when we learn a new little thing, when I hold an object from there, when I meet somebody who is a descendant. It's just, those are the ones.
What do you think is behind that? Like psychologically, what, for all of us, because we're all that way in one way or another with one thing or another. And I would say anybody who's into anything, whether it's this or Star Trek or baseball, like it's the same psychology at work. What do you think that is?
To me, it must have something to do with the way the individual is built, and their experiences, of course. Like,
sure.
On paper, I have no direct Civil War ancestor. I was a D history student. But for whatever reason, the idea of time passing over a place, even before I understood what that was, like as an 8-year-old, I was interested in that. Like, in seeing a picture and wanting to go back and find the place now. So for whatever reason, this oldest set of photography did it for me. So if somebody's into baseball, it could be because of the magic of watching a game with your grandparent or something like that. But it could also be because of the way your mind is built. And baseball is different than other sports, right? I mean, the manner in which it is played is strategic and it's different than basketball, let's say, right?
Yeah.
And I tend to think that those two things must intersect to make our obsessions.
It's funny you say that about, even when you were a kid, you like seeing photos of a place from long ago.
Like I wanted to stand in the same place.
Yeah. Because I have this weird relationship with the then and now photos. Like whenever I see them, I go, oh, that's cool. And then that's about as deep as my interest in them goes. But I do have distinct memories of being a little kid and, well, not very distinct because I can't remember the place, but I have a distinct memory of the emotion of when I would stand at a historic place. It was in Virginia somewhere. I don't remember which one it was. It wasn't any of the battlefields either. But I'm standing in a historic place. I'm looking at a plaque and it has a photograph of the people who the place belonged to standing in front of the house, which is right behind the plaque, 60, 70 years, 80 years, whatever it was prior to me standing there. And as an 8, 9, 10-year-old, whatever I was at the time, I remember thinking, oh, that's cool. Like life existed before I did, which is weird to think when you're 8 years old because you don't get that. But it gave me this strange feeling. And ever since then, I still get that feeling when I look at a photograph and I'm standing in the place. I think that's what gets me more with the then and now is like being there and looking at the then picture as opposed to just looking at
in a book.
Yeah.
Can I jump in with something
Please.
real quick? It's just this idea, and I talked about it because I've met a lot of people who are moderately interested or really interested in a then and now thing. And usually when you're actually there. And I still believe it. I don't push it as much on my tours, but we already know what the fourth dimension is. The fourth dimension is time. And I strongly feel that when people say, wow, cool, whatever, what they're experiencing is a tad of the fourth dimension. They've added time to the other natural 3D vision and experiences they have. And that we're touching on that. So when people have a greater connection with it, I think it's because of the time element. And cool and wow is usually, and maybe a shiver, is the only way we can express it.
Yeah.
Because we don't exist in the fourth dimension very often.
No, we don't.
This is getting a little deeper than
but it is. But I like that though, because I think the study of history is deeper than dates and facts. Or dates and names and things like that. Like it's human experience. It's our experience. And that's why I always feel sad for people when they say that history is boring or their eyes glass over when you're talking about something, because I want to rattle them and I want to say, do you think you're boring? Like your life is boring? Like whether you know it or not, whether it's momentous or not to the rest of us, you're living history. You're creating history right now. And it's a story. That's really all it is. Like we look at all this stuff because these are big events and we go, whoa, it's a big event and we can't imagine it. But like there's boring, mundane history. Go to any like county historical society in the middle of, some town you never heard of in Nebraska.
Yeah.
And like they've got interesting stories. They're good stories. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And but there's a human element to it, which I like that you incorporate into all this stuff.
And I have been roundly mocked and told I'm wasting my time, that I'm an incessant journal keeper. I've been doing it since 1987, and it's the most valuable thing that isn't alive that I have. It is, and the people who have pushed back on me say, well, we've got social media out there. You know what somebody's life is. That's their life record.
No.
As if you and I, in every conversation we have on Addressing Gettysburg, are perfectly frank in a way that we would be with our own diary.
We'd have no audience.
And what I have made is the very thing I wish people in the Civil War made. Imagine a veteran doing it every day for or once a week or twice a week, or every 3 weeks for their whole life, just reflecting on what's going on and what happened and their feelings about what did happen. So I feel that at the same time, I'm making this record of my life that I can look back on, and I do. And it's very therapeutic, by the way. And man, the mind is a scary thing. What it fixes and tells you, you think you remember something the way it happened, and you didn't. And I'm all for that in that respect. And I think in the end, it helps you understand who you are and maybe why you have obsessions that you do.
I often, when I do my journal, I write in a way where I go, I wish this is the way people from the past wrote, knowing that I'm going to read it one day and I'm going to want more information. So I try to put as much of that in there as I can. And the only people I think are going to read my journals are my niece and nephew. When I die, I'll give it to them. And, here's what your uncle was like, and this is what they call a psychopath. And, but yeah, I mean, journaling it's a very healthy thing to do, by the way. And I think everybody should do it.
I agree, especially historians.
Yes.
The very people who crave this.
I agree.
So maybe we should move on.
We should move on to a question here from, it sounds like there's somebody on horseback.
Horses, yes, it is.
Ghost of Sickles' Leg it's Monty Python. Ghost of Sickles' Leg is on the air. Ghost, what would you like to say?
Hey, good afternoon, Matt and Gary.
Good afternoon, sir.
Question, Gary.
Sure.
Have you seen those Revolutionary War veteran pictures that they brought back to life? And what do you think of those?
Those are cool.
Of course, and I hope they bring more back to life. But the idea that we have photography of some of these people, amazes me. The idea that, John Tyler still has a grandson or two, not great. Grandson or two available. The idea that the people who fought in the Civil War have a living connection to the people in the Revolution is awesome. And trust me, some of you may have seen what the Trust does. By the way, that's the American Battlefield Trust. For people who don't know us. Hold on, it's reversed. We make these step into history videos where we go and we step into photos. Super awesome. Cool. Thanks, Wide Awake Films, for the great production. We want to do it for the Revolution, but a painting just isn't the same as a photo. Not only is it harder for that particular technology, but in general, it's not as accessible. So that we have photos, Sickles' Leg, It's a game changer. And we see that these people they look like the older people we know today, other than the fact that they're in black and white, the original photo and whatnot. So I think it's awesome that we have that. And I think it's awesome that you're on horseback.
Right?
What the hell are you doing? What are you doing?
He's making breakfast or something, yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm actually making candy.
Oh, what kind of candy are you making?
Well, I'm making Buckeyes right now.
Good.
Chocolate.
Nice. Yeah, watch your mouth. All right, what else would you like to say or ask?
Oh, not much. I just enjoy the conversation. It's great to see Jerry around Christmas time, and I'll let you guys go.
All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That's the great
Christmas.
Ghost of Sickles' Leg.
Hi.
Have a good one, Ghost. Merry Christmas. All right, so that is cool though. Those and you know what's weird about the photos of the Revolutionary War veterans is that all of the imagery that we have from that era is paintings.
Right.
There's no photographs. So that someone who lived in the era of paintings, the pre-photograph world, is photographed. I don't know what it is, but there's something that it tickles me about that. Like it's a weird thing.
Yeah, and it's hard to understand. It's hard to explain. I would also say that, I've always thought the reason that I'm interested in the Civil War, why it sparked originally, is because it's the oldest way I could see time passing over a place photographically.
That's a good point, yeah.
And so it's no surprise I ended up with not only this thing, but it's not like I go to Harper's Ferry and have the same experience that I do at Gettysburg. There's something about the iconic nature of the place that it's such a, the terrain is so diverse that it happens to be of great import. So was Harper's Ferry. It's a trigger event, Civil War battles, everything like that. But Gettysburg is where all the things I would love come together, and photography is a massive part of that. So I think, that we have it for Crimea. Great. Do we wish we had more? Oh, yeah.
No, you're right about Gettysburg, though, and Harper's Ferry. Because Gettysburg, Harper's Ferry, and Antietam are my three favorite places to visit. I love going to each one of them.
Awesome.
And but it's for different reasons, and I get a different feeling. I get a feeling from places, right? And I'm not saying I'm a psychic or anything like that.
Or a ghost
just get a feeling from places.
Yeah, you're allowed to say that.
Yeah. And, I just get different feelings from each one of those things. But the most magical one is the one I get here. What's up, Mikey?
So just out of curiosity, Gary, I kind of feel the same way about Gettysburg photos. For me, Journey in Time was such an important book because that was really the first time I saw photos and could go to places and see where those photos were taken to get that kind of visual connection. Now I have the Antietam book and I have other books, but for some reason, it's Gettysburg in those photos that always draw me. Do you think some of that could be because that was the first connection that was made on your end?
Actually, and Antietam was mine, believe it or not. The
really?
book I picked up in my high school library in 1983 on the last day of school, the moment that changed my life, was Frasnito's Antietam book, strangely. But as I got his Gettysburg book, I became very interested in both. But somehow, I don't know why. It's not, they both have photos of the dead. They both have icons, the Dunker Church, the Burnside Bridge. But for whatever reason, I wanted to come to Gettysburg first and did. And it was, I guessed, 5 years in between when I wanted to make this trip and did make this trip. I went to both on the first trip, but I came here first.
But why does Gettysburg live in the American psyche the way it does? As this
I've got
legendary place. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think it's, you could say biggest battle. This is great battle, right? But I think also photographed early, everyone wrote about it, near population center, Gettysburg Address, first preserved. It was a place they could go. It was the first Civil War battlefield as a park that people could visit. So, but think about it. All these other parks that are still jealous of Gettysburg, jealous of the attention it gets, and I agree.
Sure.
Gettysburg's not the most important battle of the war. It's not the turning point of the Civil War, in my opinion. And the West is probably more important militarily than the East. But because of all those 6 factors, in my opinion, 6 factors, Mike Lentz, I'm going to say that's why. And I get asked this a lot. And I put a lot of thought into this one. I think that's why. And that's hard to top for any other place.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you there. It's just
Gettysburg, wow.
There you go. Gettysburg, wow. Speaking of Mike Lentz, I'm not sure if this is him, but there is a Mike on the line. Mike, you're on the air.
Howdy, Matt. Hello,
Hey.
Gary.
How you doing, Mike?
Hello.
On the topic of favorite
incidents, and one I would like to favorite incidents of the battle, and one I would like to look into for more detail, is when Howard showed up with the 11th Corps, and all hell is breaking loose north and west of the town, and he's got the guts, foresight, to leave a brigade behind on Cemetery Hill while he pushes the rest of his corps north. And, I mean, when I think about it anyway, I mean, the 1st Corps was in a shambles, although they'd done some very good work. 11th Corps was just arriving on the field, and they were soon to start getting badly beaten up and flanked on the right. Buford's people were probably reforming on the flanks, but they were, probably somewhat used up. But, I mean, to me, it's amazing that Howard had the guts to say, you know what, all hell's breaking loose, and we need to get up there, but I'm going to leave a brigade behind on Cemetery Hill.
So, first of all, what I'll say...
And then, of course, the conversation with between he and Hancock when Hancock showed up. I think I've read about everything that's written about that conversation, but I would like to look into more about Howard making that decision.
Yeah.
I just think there was a ballsy decision to leave that brigade there, and it was a good thing that he did. That's all I had to say.
Thanks, Mike. I would say, first of all, well done. Secondly, I'm going to correct you on one thing. He actually leaves 2 brigades back on Cemetery Hill, one of which will eventually go out to bail out the 11th Corps. That's Custer's brigade. Again, the battle's fought by brigades, so super well done.
Okay.
I love talking about Howard, because he's one of the many people here who was just hit with a broad brush. I can make fun of it by saying that he's kind of good on the retreat, which is true. That dude is more used to retreat than most of the Union commanders. I mean, starting in the first battle, the dude is like called out for how great he was falling back at Manassas. There he is again, and at Antietam, rally boys. But then this idea of he was in a tough situation. He not only left 2 brigades there, but he left the guns. And, so really you have like a whole division and a bunch of cannons there, and for which he receives the thanks of Congress later. Not the Medal of Honor, but at least the thanks of Congress for it. Then lastly, what I'll say is, because it is endlessly fascinating, and I'm a Hancock guy. Hancock, my favorite general.
He's superb.
Right?
He's my favorite in the whole war.
I'd be curious, Mike, to ask you, I sort of portray it as Hancock, putting his hand on the order that he has in his pocket, saying, I have it, and sort of taunting Howard, don't make me pull it out. And Howard's like, no, that's okay. What do you think about that moment? Do you think it was portrayed like that, or something vastly different?
I kind of lean towards what Howard said about it later, that, paraphrasing, it sort of ended up like Hancock saying, all right, well, look here, you run this stuff on the right and I'll run this stuff on the left. I kind of wonder if that's how it really turned out.
Cool. Well, let me not memorialize, he's still alive, but let me mention my friend and colleague Chris White, who would not let me survive talking about Howard without saying that the 2 adjectives applied to him are the pious and vapid Oliver Otis Howard.
Yes. Mike, is this Mike from Pittsburgh? I don't want to say your last name.
No, I called a while back during the JFK episode and talked to you about how many shots I thought was fired. This is Mike from Akron, Ohio.
Mike from Akron. Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Mike, for the call and for watching and everything like that. I hope you have a happy holidays.
Yep, you guys do the same.
All right, thank you very much. If you want to call in, the number is 717-420-1978. Garry, recently you were back in your home state of Illinois, and you were at an event that one of our listeners put on, and I put you in touch with her, and you did this whole day. What was it? A day of just Gettysburg, right? Out in Illinois?
It was. And hello, Sharon, by the way, if you're listening. It was a lovely day. And trust me, by the way, I would gloss over it and say something else and deflect it if I didn't think it was a lovely day. I would not say.
Yeah, good.
It was not only beautiful weather, the event was very well put on. There were some real Gettysburg nerds there, and unfortunately, some others that were dragged there by the Gettysburg nerds, because this was 10 hours of Gettysburg.
It was intense.
And actually, I could give a 10-hour tour, but giving a 10-hour thing, of which I did, I think, 6 or 7 hours of it, inside was a challenge. I had to really prepare for it. It was good. It stretched my brain a lot. How do you tell the story of a battle being 800 miles away?
Right.
And it was great. And they brought horses and they had some guns there. So they had some performance. They played the Ashokan Farewell.
Sharon did that, right?
Hell of a musician.
I know. She was acting all like, oh, shucks. And I'm like,
no, it was great.
She was a professional musician. Her career was in music.
Faux real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she's very good.
So it was
I haven't
great.
even had her. I've never heard her play, but I know she's good because she has to be.
And it is like to all those people you opened up talking a little bit about, or we were talking before the show about the guide test and like, I want to be this person. And, I hear it all the time. They want my job, because I get to do crazy cool stuff. And I would, say that between my job at the trust and on the side, I get to do stuff like that, right? And in this case, I got flown home. I got to see my family. Like I worked really hard. It wore me out. And that takes a lot to do. But just for those of you kind of chasing the dream, sort of, I would just encourage everybody. I mean, it wasn't luck, partly I was at the right place at the right time, but just don't compromise. Don't help your friend if your friend's not good at what they're doing historically. So don't compromise that way. Know your stuff. Be positive, don't complain too much, and make yourself valuable to people who can help you later. And what I'm trying to say about this is then I go to this thing, I worked really hard, got paid for it, and they thank me. Like I'm doing them the favor.
Yes.
Which I understand, by the way. I go to talks and I'm very appreciative of it, but it's this great thing. If you continue, if you do things excellently and get along with people, I mean, maybe you'll be in this ridiculous world I'm in where people thank me for doing my obsession. Well,
they thank you because it helps them too to have you.
Absolutely.
It's a draw.
It's an exchange.
And it is. And no, but 10 hours though. I mean, 10 hours of a tour sounds like a lot because you're walking around and everything like that. I know the answer to this is going to be veganism, but I'm going to ask anyway. How do you have the energy to do that, to keep going? I mean, obviously out in Illinois there, you had a break because they had, she would do a Ashokan Farewell or there would be maybe a demonstration of weaponry or whatever. But is that what you do? You just take those breaks and you rest up? I mean, I'm thinking of my voice.
She did, a couple of things. So first of all, to be fair, I was doing things like this, like fishhook tours before I ever went vegan, long before. Now, I was younger, but, I'm...
So do you just naturally have energy?
I've always been. I've always, been a bit much for the people around me. And I've also had this abundant energy. And I marvel at the idea that everybody else gets along without it. So, but what I'll say is, I only did 6 or 7 of the hours of it, but this is my own fault too. I mean, first of all, this is natural. It's my natural enthusiasm for my obsessions that make me this way. And then that's become my brand and I can't do it any other way. So one thing I've always been able to do is even when I'm tired, I can push a lot harder than that.
Yeah.
Then I can have a lot more energy than most people. And you catch me at the end of a Gettysburg anniversary, like where I've given tours and shot videos, and you'll see me tired. It does happen, but I'm able to get to the finish line for whatever reason. And I will say that since I've changed the way I eat and since I walk 7 miles a day and now I run a little bit too, I have more energy than I did in my 30s or 40s.
Yeah, I got to really take diet and exercise seriously.
Way to go, man.
I mean, I've been saying that for 3 years, so,
Addressing Gettysburg, helping you to be a better and more healthy person.
That would be amazing. Maybe that's what I should do. That would hold me accountable as if I started making it public, my exercising and everything.
You're right.
People would be like, oh, you're quitting, blah, blah, blah. We have a phone number here, 6 questions asking Garry about the guide test. Is this the 6 questions?
Yeah, it's me. It's 6 questions.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
Hey, man.
I'm doing well. I just have a question. We just got done with that beast of a test on Saturday. And if any of us pass, what suggestions would you have? What advice would you have for the next phase?
Okay, good. So first of all, Mike, man, I wish you luck. I wish all my friends, of course, luck who took the test. Like I heard it was a beast. I'm hopeful and confident that you're going to make it. Secondly, when I took the test, it was test, class, it was test, class, oral. There wasn't the panel interview. There wasn't anything like this. So what I would say is a couple of things. One is the first part of which is to help you pass the oral, because I can't really say anything about, the process. But I would say that I think a lot of people who get kicked out during the panel, like they're really angry. And it sounds like they were angry when they were being interviewed. And that doesn't make sense to me. You're trying to show how you can be with the public. Don't get mad at the park. Like for interviewing you, because trust me, the public's going to be worse. Even the public that claims to like me are all over me, like daily.
There's a fine line between love and hate.
Yes,
with the public.
So first of all, I would say that you should stop now. And I said this on a post recently. If you do not want to be service-minded, and if you do not want to be under the auspices of a bureaucracy, you should be eyes wide open about it. It's like most every archivist I've ever met says their job is repetitive and boring. I'm like, what did you think you'd be doing?
Right.
You went to school for 2 or 4 years to do this.
Yeah.
You knew what the job would be. So I would say this, a lot of the guides, like to gripe like soldiers. I get it. You know what I mean? Like that, but it doesn't do anybody any good. You know what? The person next to you doesn't want to hear it either. So, and certainly the people seeing if you have a good temperament don't want to hear it either. So first of all, be positive and pretend like you're being interviewed by someone of the public and you're trying to give them a good experience. That's what a tour is. It's an experience. And that's number one. Number two is, I would say take the time when it comes to your oral to, first of all, go out with other battlefield guides, because filling those dead spaces is an art. Like, it's not something that just comes to you. You have to construct a 2-hour tour in order to get it done right. And in a way where Tim gave me this advice before I took mine. That's Tim Smith. In case you don't know.
Yes.
Cool. That was me, by the way. I want you to know that wasn't
a good Tim impression, actually.
I had that dude in my ear for 30-some years. So in any case, he told me to learn to talk about the same thing at different places,
right?
Which was great advice, Mike. So when you got to do that, if somebody's talking to you about, they'll hit you with a question right when it's the perfect time to talk about mini balls and tactics. Learn to be able to talk about those things at another spot, and learn to give your tour so you will not go over, because that can disqualify you. You could give a great tour, and if it's 240, 220, they're probably not going to pass you. So, I would say spend the time to do the route. Take what they teach you in the class seriously, and try to sit back and realize that, sure, you're a tour guide, but what you're doing is giving them an experience while you're describing something.
There you go. I like that.
Bullshit.
Oh, Tim doesn't like that.
God damn it, Tim.
Come on, leave him alone. It's funny you say, though, before about, people kind of getting into it and then griping about, what it is. It reminds me, because, I tried music for a while. I didn't really give it an honest shot, but I, thought I was trying. And the thing that I noticed with people who did succeed, and you see this all the time, if you just watch any like behind the music or one of those types of, biographical shows about musicians, they get into it because they love it. All they do is play. And then the minute it becomes a business, it becomes a job, and they see what it's actually like being a rock star. Everybody sees what it's like being Garry Adelman on an American Battlefield Trust video, but they don't know the amount of work that, first of all, it took to get you to get a job with the trust, let alone, what it takes to do those videos, the traveling. You're like all over the place. And you have a very busy schedule. When we book you on the show, it's got to be months out, right? Like you're probably already booked all the way through 25 already, aren't you?
I reserved some time in the winter, but I've already rejected a lot for 25 because a lot of my year is already booked up. What else did I want to say about this thing too? Is I guess I've learned so much. I've had a lot of good bosses in my life.
Sure.
And two ago, my current one's David Duncan. Before that was Jim Lighthizer, and he just stressed the import of gratitude. And here, what do I have to complain about? And I have bad days. I work for a fundraising organization. I also work in the public. I have a popular, Facebook, following on YouTube where people just destroy you sometimes. Really mean stuff and whatnot. But here I find myself getting paid for my obsession. Who am I to complain?
Right.
And I wish, that some of the people who get disillusioned as guides, you won't be this way, Mike, is to be grateful. Like, sure, you worked hard to get there and you deserve it. But the fact is you're doing what you've tried so hard and studied so hard to do.
Yeah.
So don't let the little stuff bug you. It's going to happen,
Yeah, that's great advice. Mike, what do you think about that advice? Are you going to take that advice?
Oh, exactly. That's the thing. I'm grateful just to have the opportunity to take the test, to actually make an attempt at doing something I'm passionate about. Are you kidding me? Plus, I've worked in the service industry, so I understand how people work.
Yes.
And I really want to be there to help serve them and show this place to them and share this passion and this love for this place to them as well.
I think that's the thing is we love it. You and I have talked about this a lot, Mike. Like we love being here, and even Mikey B in the back there. Like we love Gettysburg. We love to be here, and we want to do anything we can to share that and expose other people to it so that they may fall in love with it, because we know the joy it gives us. You know, talking about, you know, there's places that we go on the battlefield that still kind of give us a tingle or something, or the thing that still grabs us. Like, that's a good feeling. Whatever it is, you know, hopefully everybody can find that in life. And that whatever it is different for everybody else. But, you know, for somebody who it might be Gettysburg for, you know, like it would be nice to be the guy who says, you know, hey, yeah, come check this out. And that's and when you see that look in somebody's eyes for the first time, when they realize like how cool this is, and then it shoots you back to when you first did that, it kind of makes all those bad days go away, all the bullshit with dealing with all the personalities and the, you know, the squabbles and all that. It just makes it all go away.
Dude, and I'll say this to Mike too. You know, if you get experienced enough, good enough, if you're a good storyteller or whatever, this happens a lot. You know, where you see that look, where you see the, now I get it. That's what it was like, which is all I'm trying to do at the Trust and as a guide.
Yeah.
Now I get it. That's what it was like, you know. And once in a while, I mean, every time I go out, one of the reasons I'm pouring everything I have into it, because like a fishhook hike, like you try screaming for 6 hours, like, you know, you're walking a little bit.
That's what I'm saying.
It really can wear you out.
Sure.
All the more reason to, you know, take good care of yourself. But, you know, what I'm going for is a transformational experience. Like, I might only provide that for a small percentage of the people who come on my tours. Some of them might enjoy it. Some of them might have been looking for something else. That's okay. You know, but a few of them, whatever the percentage, you know, might be inclined to visit another battlefield or read a new book that they other. I mean, the obsessed you already sort of have.
Yes.
And they're going to go out for that experience. And I have a lot of people like that. But the lion's share of people, you know, that I take around are regular Trust members who have a passing interest or something a little bit more. They're not full-on nerds, and you might, you know, spark a whole thing for them or their grandkids that can last a lifetime. And that's what I'm going for every time.
You would probably agree with the thing I always say, although except you're an atheist. But I say, I'm not trying to preach to the choir. I'm trying to convert the masses. I'm trying to bring people in who wouldn't normally give this stuff a second thought. And it sounds kind of like that's what you're doing. It's not even that extreme, but just the middle of the road people.
Yeah, and it fits the philosophy of why I support even, you know, some of the most controversial history movies. Yeah. It is so much easier for them to light the spark and for me to undo it than the reverse. Lighting the spark to people you don't even know or can't reach. I mean, a movie or a special, like a bestseller, like they can do this in a way that people like you and I can't possibly do.
Right.
So it goes along with that philosophy. So, you know, I don't really care if what brought them in wasn't perfect. You know, we can fix that later.
I think I've heard you say that you would say that Glory is the best Civil War movie. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I would agree with you. But historically, it's like a mess.
It depends who you are, calling it a mess versus there's some problems or it's terrible. I mean, it really depends who you talk to.
Well, I mean, if we're going by characters.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's not it's a fully historical accurate.
Yeah.
Fully historically accurate.
But it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, now, okay, let's put this in. What year did that come out? 89?
89.
So I was 13 when that came out. In fact, I think we went and saw it on my 13th birthday, or at least that's the memory I think I have. Now, by 13 years old, I'm no Civil War scholar or even a buff. Like, I just thought it was cool, right? But I never knew that there were black regiments. So right there, that's all I learned from that. And that's all I needed to learn at that point. So just the fact that it does that one little thing for a 13-year-old is something he can build on later. You know, and so it doesn't matter to me if Major Forbes never existed. You know, who cares?
Or if they attack the other direction.
Right, if they're going the wrong way.
What does that really matter?
It doesn't matter.
You know,
no, it doesn't. But there are people who, my theory on the people that are going to say, well, it's, it's not that good because they're going the wrong way. the like super nerds that like can't forgive.
Yeah, look at the color of the haversack. I'm never seeing it.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just to me that just is a sign of a deeper problem. Mike, just jump in. You don't need to raise your hand.
Yeah, there's only one unforgivable thing. As a South Jerseyan, a Gloucester County native, Charles Garrison Harker's name being used for a character when he's from Swedesboro, he's killed at Kennesaw Mountain. Where I'm from, he's the Civil War hero.
Okay.
And they do use his name as like one of the evil generals.
Ooh.
And even though he wasn't there.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, that's right. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm so sorry.
I guess I would call that second scene of the movie Lincoln, a movie I love, where they're lecturing Lincoln about how the black dudes are he's not doing enough.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh no. And then the whole rest of the movie is awesome.
Fantastic. It is. It's fantastic.
And again, that got people interested in the end of the war and emancipation and everything. Great.
But one of the things we talked about before, maybe we can get into this. Mike, thank you for the call, Mike.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good one.
You too.
Thanks, man.
One of the things that we talked about before, and I'd like to get into it after we take this next call, but is the whole, they should have let Hood go around to the right.
All right.
That whole thing. Let's take Grant first. Grant calling from Australia.
Hey, Matt. Hey,
Gary.
Hey, Gary.
Hey.
Grant, are you just waking up, or are you inebriated? What's going on with you?
It's 5 a.m.
I'm sorry. So you're just waking up. Good morning, Grant. How are you?
What if he said both?
I'm just waking up and I'm drunk.
Sorry, Grant.
Grant, what's up? What can we do for you? What could Gary do for you?
I've just got a few questions I'd like to ask Gary.
Go ahead.
Okay, firstly, on the preservation side, what's the piece of land that you've been involved with preserving that you're most proud of? It doesn't have to be at Gettysburg.
Oh, man. Well, the first one, because this is a Gettysburg show, first of all, great question. Thank you. There's only one piece of land that the trust has ever preserved that I identified and helped to arrange the deal and put it together and saw us purchase it and the land restored. And it's land that most people don't even know we've preserved. It is on East Cemetery Hill. We noticed that a house was coming up for sale along the line of the 107th Ohio, and where there's some markers and everything like that. Most people think the fight for East Cemetery Hill ends where the park ends, but in fact, the main line was 2 walls over. So kind of near the Gettysburg Tour Center. That house was coming up, but I realized it would be detached. So then I wondered about those woods to the sort of south of it. And we found that they were owned by the Gettysburg Municipal Authority. And long story short, while they would not, we talked to them. I asked the tower guy straight up, like, would you get rid of that water tower anytime? He's like, that's the best one we have in the county. So not even close. But, they can't possibly use those woods. So we purchased the woods from them and the house from the people. And we tore it down probably in August of 2013. I stayed in it for Gettysburg 150. I literally slept on the battle lines. It was awesome. And now hardly anybody goes, but it is a preserved part of the battlefield where the soldiers fought and memorialized the place. And you can somewhat picture the Confederate attack of the Louisianians coming towards you. So, Grant, nobody would have expected me to say this because there's been a lot I've been involved in. And I'm very proud of my role in whether it be spreading the message or helping to raise funds with major donors and things like that. But that's what popped into my head when you asked.
So that's the top of the hill.
Top of the hill, yes.
Right,
it's like behind. It's like behind. It's like kind of like east of the Holiday Inn.
Yes, I know.
And then those woods that are between there and the park.
Right. So that the woods that are down, just I guess south of the football field with the little gate there. That's not park property.
Correct. No.
Right?
That's the Gettysburg Gun Club used to own that, and who knows when that might go into the park. I don't know anything about the current disposition of that.
Okay, that's interesting. Grant, what else you got?
Okay, and it's no secret, Gary, that you're a big Civil War photography fan. What's your favorite photo that was taken during the war?
This changes from time to time. Great question. And it's like, I hate superlatives, no offense at all, because that forces me to say the best, the furthest, the most, and I'm somewhat buying time. But whenever this question comes up, I come back to the series of 3 photos taken of Grant and Meade and others outside Massaponax Church after the Battle of Spotsylvania. You know the one I mean. I think it's taken from a window down on them.
Yep.
You can see Grant smoking and writing and leaning over Meade's shoulder. Something about the immediacy of that and the traffic moving, knowing what's coming. They didn't know, but we know where those wagons are headed. It's to North Anna and Totopotomy, Cold Harbor, Petersburg, and eventually Appomattox. And knowing that they're not even through, the bloodletting yet, and allows us sort of an intimate glimpse into an actual headquarters complex. That's what I get back to now. Would I answer this way? I mean, right away, I think of the freed people with the ruins of Richmond behind them. Like it has to be the single most meaningful photo of the Civil War. But then, I just go back to something like Gardner's photo of the face of Little Round Top, which I just can't get enough of and want to identify and examine the particular boulders. I'd like to step into that photo one day and do all that stuff. It is no surprise that what the Trust is producing sometimes as these step-in videos happen to be some of my favorite photos. Yeah. But maybe they're my favorites because the places are still around and you can step into them. Right. So it's hard to say, man, this is tough because I could also go out. The series of photos taken on Lookout Mountain, one of the most photographed places of the Civil War, really come to mind. Some of the Atlanta campaign shots have a gritty feel to them, the Barnard shots that really allow me in. So I could go on all day, but those are the ones that popped into my head.
And where's the Harvest of Death?
Always happy to talk about it for a limited time only. Since we last talked, Matt, 3 theories have been advanced to me.
3 new ones?
Yes. Well, no. I mean, some of them are old that I've never checked out. One of which is still sitting in my inbox. Sorry, Bob. I just haven't been able to go out. My enthusiasm to go and check these places out, which usually devolves into some sort of an argument. Like, well, why do I hate them? Like, why do I hate everybody who's ever done it? Like, it has nothing to do with that. But the more I think it's viable, the quicker I go out there.
Okay. Which one have you gone out to?
So, I tell these people I won't tell anybody. So there's been 2 on the south end. One of which was just, this guy was ready to present at my seminar last year. He's like, I'm ready to buy my ticket. And it was just absolutely impossible. His 2 photos weren't in other directions. They were like almost side by side. And people don't like hearing it before I tell them. I say, you're probably not going to like me after this, but if you do want my opinion, I'll get it. And I'm a direct dude. I'll tell them exactly how I feel about their theory. Another guy I had trouble. I had to spend some time really thinking about, is there some way? And that's how I go at this, not trying to prove them wrong, although I think that's a healthy way to go about it. I'm trying to say, is this even possible? And this one took me a little while. And, it's, inside the third core position, it's where the most logical place would be, but it just doesn't work. Yeah. And it was a place I'd looked at before, too.
So you're still certain, though, it's not on the first day's battlefield?
I can't say that, no. All I'm certain of is that the evidence I've seen, that nobody's presented a theory that, to me, isn't completely impossible. Could it still be on the first day? Of course. Okay. Is it likely to be on the first day? That's a pretty big leap, to be so many miles from the closest other photos of the dead. But is it possible? Sure. Could it be at Antietam? Sure. But none of the theories I've come up with.
Could it be mislabeled? Like you say, could it be at Antietam? Could it be mislabeled and put in the wrong collection?
It could be, but the idea that they'd wait, they have photos of dead. They're going to release all the other photos of dead and hold these 5 back. In case Brady and I don't get along, I'm going to wait. Plus, what I'm going to do too? I'm going to scratch different negative numbers on these that I'll use in the future.
Yeah, they would have marked them. Yeah.
Highly unlikely.
Yeah. The reason I'm thinking is because, we creative people can often be disorganized and we can leave things somewhere and forget and discover them later and then just throw them in.
Totally. What I'll say too is one more thing is that some of these people come up with, I have 2 theories. Here they are. Which one's right? Every one of the theories is either completely right or wrong. Right. And just because there's 2 or 60 doesn't mean one of them's right.
Right.
Man, do I contend with angry people who want me to say which one's more right.
But what is
it's either 0 or 100. That's
why
what
do people get so worked up over this stuff?
Well, people get very personal about when it's their theory or their friend's theory.
Sure. No, but I get that, but like at the same time, it's you don't know, your friend doesn't know.
But they do.
But they
people
don't.
I've met who they know their theory's right, whether they're right or wrong about that, fine, but they know it. Trust me, I've met a lot of people who know their theory is right.
Yeah, no, I know they're out there. Like,
so from their perspective.
Yeah. I don't get why people get so worked up over it.
I know.
You know, at the end of the day, you're still going to be you. I'm still going to be me. We're still going to go about our lives.
And I still regret my somewhat public scrap with John Cummings, who's my friend.
Right.
And I've kind of, gotten together with more lately, because I probably acted beneath myself. He might say the same while we publicly fought about this thing and everything like that. His theory looks really good at first glance.
Yeah.
But it's not any more right or less right than any of the other theories I say have a 0% chance of being right, in my opinion.
Well, since we're on the subject of imagery, how about Alfred Woad? What was the impact that he had in how we remember the Battle of Gettysburg as a whole? And this is a super chat from Mike, by the way, on the phone there. And then Grant, don't worry, I haven't forgotten you.
So first of all, I would say that I'm a Wad guy. I always said Woad, and then I met his great-grandson, and he said his grandmother said Wad.
Really?
And that's pretty strong stuff.
Well, she had a speech impediment, I heard.
Maybe it's possible. I don't know why it would be Woad over Wad,
right.
If you take other words that are spelled that way. But in any case, I went to his grave earlier this year, and I just went to Edwin Forbes' grave. So I went to both of the major Gettysburg sketch artists this year. These guys have a sense of immediacy. They could make sketches without worry of their glass plates, of their developing wagon. Of course, there's something lacking, but we know that Wad's stuff tends to be very accurate. In most cases, if he sketched something, that's how it looks like. So we don't have a photo of the railroad cut close up until the late 1870s, early 1880s. We have a Wad from July 5th or 6th, 1863. We have the barricades in town that don't show up in any other way except in this Wad drawing. So I would say him and Forbes together provide something that appends the record every bit as well as a map does. Like, imagine if we had only photos and no early maps, or only early maps and no photos. It's a key sort of third part of this, in that these drawings war-wide help us to see things that in some cases photographers couldn't have covered, and sometimes it's the only evidence, it's the only visual depiction of a battlefield for decades after that battle in some of these places.
Samuel Wilkeson, he sketched too?
I don't know that he sketched that much.
Did he paint?
I could be wrong. I mean, I know him for his famous newspaper account and his famous, his famous son. And I'm going to get emotional if I talk too much about him, but I don't know of his other skills, if he painted or
Well, here's why I ask. There was a sketch in the guide exam, and it said who did this and what does it depict and all that other stuff. And I looked at it and I was like, I have never seen this style of sketching before.
Okay.
In all the famous sketches of the battle I've seen. I've never seen this sketch before,
Was
period.
it like of Bayard on Barlow's Knoll?
It was Bayard on Barlow's Knoll.
Is it the one that's on the park's wayside exhibit, like him on horseback?
He's on horseback and yeah.
Okay.
And so afterwards, a lot of us were confused by it, and we Googled it, and it's supposedly Samuel Wilkeson that did it.
That's news to me.
It's news to me too.
That's another thing. 6 Questions and others who took the guide test, like, be ready to be humble. On most tours I give, there are questions I can't answer.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes they're really minutia or they're about something very tangential, but be ready to learn. I know some presenters and docents and guides who get mad when they're questioned. You're supposed to get people to ask questions.
Right.
So I would say that, and I'm happy to learn this possible bit of information I'll try to confirm about Samuel.
Please do. I mean, because I can show you. We can Google it afterwards, and I can show you. But we were all like, "Huh." I've never heard that he sketched.
Jim Hessler's probably shaking his head at me like, Gary doesn't know what he's talking about, because he's good on this. He's good on Barlow's Knoll. I don't claim to be that one of those my specialties.
Yeah, maybe I should ask him then. But all right, Grant, what else you have?
Just one last question on the personal.
Okay.
Gary, your friendship with Tim Smith is something I think we all enjoy.
Awesome.
Gary and Tim don't,
though. Your gentle ribbing of each other and all that is always a lot of fun. And your work online is what introduced me to Matt's show.
Thank you, Gary.
Awesome.
And the big reason why, one of the big reasons why I'm going to come in a few months to Gettysburg. So thank you for that.
Excellent. This is what I was talking about, like lighting that spark.
Yep.
If we got you into it, that makes me feel super
An
good.
Australian of all people.
Yeah. And I mean, Tim and I, like, there's a lot I can't talk about, like, our Tim. God, it's going to, that sounds much, no, I was going to talk about how I can't say about my and Tim meeting. Like that makes it sound much more mysterious. And,
bullshit.
But, I mean, Tim and I used to just rove around the battlefield. I mean, we were sometimes serious, but generally not.
Yeah, just enjoying it.
This idea of it. And we would, make fun of people. And sometimes we were, a little bit beneath ourselves and whatnot. But this part friendship, like eventually, I don't know if I would have ever moved here if I hadn't met Tim. I don't know if I would have become a guide on the first try. Hadn't I known Tim, he still, to me, is the number one Gettysburg knowledgeable living person. If you took the whole battlefield and town, so I was very fortunate in the first people. Yeah, and he knows all the other stuff too.
Yeah.
And literally, the first people I met were Van Nitz, who used to own Field of Glory, then Tim, then Wayne Motts, then Dave Richards, then Charlie Fennell. This is who I met.
Pretty good ranks there.
Yeah, I mean, those are the first 5 people I got to know in Gettysburg, really. So I was very lucky. So I have benefited the same way you have, Grant. Looks like I have to extend my parking.
That's a very nice thing to say about your friend, Gary.
I know, because I'm not usually that nice.
Usually you always have some kind of creepy Uncle Timmy comment or something like that. And it's funny. It's hilarious. But that was very nice of you to say. I'm sure he appreciates it. Grant.
So, Matt?
Yeah, go ahead. What else you got?
My question in regards to Gary and Tim, what was your first impression, Gary, of Tim, and what's something that most people wouldn't know about Tim?
All right. Well, doesn't know. I mean, most people don't know that he is still a heavy metal guitarist.
Yes.
And really into that. And he told me some awesome, hardcore song lines when we first met. Oh, my God.
Didn't he write a song about Robert E. Lee?
Lee the Butcher.
Yeah. And we were going to have him back when we were in the shed. He was supposed to bring his guitar and amp and we were going to record it. I still have to get him to do that because
I have that recording.
You do?
So Tim and he played the guitar, and I think I just have the recording. He and I did a lot of things musically. A friend of mine, Matt Crowner, still lives around these parts. Brought over all of his equipment and we laid down all sorts of stuff. And we did, I had one called Devil's Den, Dead Soldiers in the Devil's Den, Writhing in the Slaughter Pen, Mangled Heaps of Bloodied Men, Don't Want to Fight Here Again.
Oh, yeah.
And Tim had Lee the Butcher, Charging Double Canister, Their Ranks Are Ripped and Torn, Trampling Fellow Comrades, There Is No Time to Mourn. And he would say it there is no time, heavy metal style.
Yeah.
And so I have that recording somewhere, and I think your people would love it if Tim would come in for a reprisal.
Are you kidding me? People would go nuts for that.
For the other one, so the question was what I thought of him. Let me tell you.
What's your first impression
Let me
of
tell
him?
you, here I said something nice about him, so let me balance the scales. To me, I don't care if he was from Baltimore. I thought he was the most country ass dude I think I'd ever met in my life. And I also was just struck by where we started having phone conversations. I'd say, what's going on? He's like, well, we all went out to the wheat field today. And I was like, oh my God, that would kill me because I lived in Chicago at the time. I'd say, what else is going on? He's like, well, things are really heating up over at the railroad cut. Oh yeah, what else is going on? Well, Little Round Top is, and I'm like, this dude has nothing else going on.
Right.
Yeah. But there's dinosaurs and his family, of course. And of course, we've got the heavy metal stuff. So he does have interest, but he's, as much as I was focused on Gettysburg, I was never in the same league.
Tim is like a walking encyclopedia. Well, both of you are this way, where your recall is very quick.
Not about the last 5 years, I'll tell you that. But the distant past, I'm good.
Yeah, right. About the 160 years ago, everything's okay. No, but that's true, though, isn't it? It's hard to remember what you ate for breakfast this morning.
Yeah, everything that happened in the last few years was the other day to me.
Yeah. Yes. I know exactly.
I remember the distant past very well.
Yeah. Grant, anything else?
No, that's it. Thanks very much, Matt. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks for calling. It's
very
good to
welcome,
talk to you.
Grant. And we'll do our Zoom someday soon there, okay? We have Mike again from Akron. I guess Mike has a follow-up question. Mike, what's up?
Hello, Matt?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's me again, Mike from Akron.
What's up, Mike?
I just had a comment to make about how Sickles' Third Corps was supposed to tie in to Hancock's left flank, and Sickles was also supposed to cover Little Round Top. I think I think even though he had only 2 divisions there, he had to leave a division behind. I think in Westminster guarding trains or something. Even though Sickles only had those 2 divisions, I think he could have done it and covered Little Round Top and had a brigade in reserve. And of course, all of his artillery. And I'll tell you why if you want to know.
Well, let me challenge you on 2 things first. One, supposed to connect with Hancock and supposed to cover Little Round Top. I'm not sure if I know those to be true. I'm not saying that they're not, but considering he did this like without orders, or at least of his own volition, what he was supposed to do is almost moot. I think that Sickles would have known that he's trying to cover Little Round Top would have been important, and that not having your flank in the air is important, but he made no real attempt. I don't think it was a lack of men that forced him to not, hook up with Hancock, but rather the lay of the land and the number of men he had. Now, obviously, to get into whether he had enough, I mean, I don't know how you come to that conclusion. I mean, he did have Burling's guys and the Excelsior Brigade sort of not on the front line. So you've really got Carr's brigade covering the Emmetsburg Road. You've got Graham in the Peach Orchard. You got de Trobriand around the wheat field and Ward around Devil's Den. That's a lot of land in between. Could those 2 brigades have covered that? And then you'd have no reserve at all. Why don't you respond to that?
Okay, well, I think probably you're correct. But I'm a war gamer, and I have this game produced by Avalon Hill called Gettysburg.
I have that.
Oh, do you really?
Oh, yeah, I used to play it all the time. Then I played this. Yeah, sorry.
Try this sometime when you've got about 30 minutes to kill. Just position Hancock's left where you think it would have been, and then take those. And for the people who are listening, this is a war game with a map. It's a hexagon grid over the map, and then you have counters representing brigades. And depending on the size of the brigade, they can take up 1 hex or 2 or 3 hexes or whatever. But using the numbers that Sickles arrived with just 2 divisions and his artillery, I stretched those game pieces from Hancock's left back somewhat at a southeasterly angle, a Little Round Top, covered Little Round Top. I didn't put anybody out where Company B was later, with Point Maine, but I did cover Little Round Top. I had a brigade in reserve and plenty of artillery.
But what I would encourage you to do, Mike,
that game at that scale,
yeah, what I would encourage you to do is if each soldier took up a foot because they're in 2 lines and they're 2 feet wide, do it that way. Lay out your line on a map or on Google Earth and see if there's enough people and enough, if the guns are supposed to be 14 yards apart, then see what you got. And then also see that if you don't if you don't occupy if you don't occupy Devil's Den, where in the world is your line? I mean, you do want high ground, in the middle ground if the Confederates can attack across the Valley of Death and through the wheat field. So think about all that. Put it down on a map, and then you'll be able to answer your question.
I didn't put his units anywhere near Devil's Den other than Little Round Top.
Yeah, do it on a map, I think, rather than hexes, and you'll be good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it was just an idea I had.
All right.
Wait, carry on, guys.
All right, Mike. Thanks very much. Okay, so we've got a couple more super chats here, and then we're going to start to let Garry go, right? Because you got to.
Yeah, I already extended my parking.
Yeah, you did. It was very nice of you.
Well, I can't say I'm hungry. I still have some pretzels.
You've been snacking on all your vegan
food. I've been nice. I remember when I had celery once. I was chomping right up.
Because people love that.
Of course, I could do the ASMR sort of like.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, God, people.
Sorry.
People do like that stuff, though. Okay, let's see here. Michael, 6 questions. Lens has a super chat. He says, with the 250th anniversary of the War for Independence coming up, can you discuss what plans the American Battlefield Trust preserving those stories has? What are the plans for the trust?
Okay, thanks, Mike, and I appreciate it. So 250 is a huge deal to the trust. It's been for a long time, and we've been laying the groundwork for a while. First of all, let me say that outside the trust, no one has emerged as the single entity that is the 250. It seems like it's there is a national organization, a foundation, America 250. And then you've got the Park Service's efforts, and then you've got the state commissions and things like that. Virginia's big, North Carolina's big, New Jersey's stepping up. Way to go, Mikey! And then you've got, of course, Boston and Philly really stepping up for this. So we're part of a lot of people who are doing a lot of things. Obviously, the Society of Cincinnati and other people are doing stuff. So our thing has been based around a few things. A, we want to save a lot of land. We're trying to save 2,500 acres, during or before the end of the 250. We are also trying to, and we have spent significant hundreds of hours and tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of our donors' money, thanks Tom for the support, making animated maps, making apps and things like that. What we're trying to do is so when people go, Mike, to these sites, that they'll have an experience that is on the level of a Gettysburg or a place. In other words, they can watch the animated map before, they can use the app while they're there. They're going to be greeted by a docent. There's already short videos about it and everything that they need. And we're trying to fill in those gaps to that end. We also have a traveling exhibition called the American Revolution Experience. And we expected a little bit of government help. We got some funding that maybe it would visit 40 sites in the first year. We immediately got 350 or so applications, and the American Revolution Experience, there's now multiple copies of it, traveling the country around to libraries, schools, museums, Daughters of the American Revolution chapters. And so that's a traveling exhibition for people who can't come east to see all these places and stuff like that. So, we're going to do a Revolutionary War swing, what we call video swings, where Chris White and me and a couple other people go out and shoot as many videos in one area as we can. We have we already have a Yorktown driving tour, like a guided tour like we have for Gettysburg already. We're going to do one for Valley Forge, maybe one for Saratoga when they're open. So we've got a lot of very typical trust plans, I guess is what I'm saying. And for Lexington and Concord, hang on to your hats. So 250 really starts to me in April.
Yeah.
And before that date, we will have a virtual reality Lexington and Concord video like we have for the Trenches of 1864, which is by far our most popular video, by more than 10 times our most popular video.
Yes.
So this big deal thing, thanks other Tom for supporting that, will come out before then. So we have a lot going on, and I'm sure I forgot a lot, and for which my colleagues, if they hear this, some of them will get on me for forgetting things.
That's going to be really awesome. And that's the Trust does such a great job in the videos embracing modern technology, like video production technology. I mean, obviously, you're not doing these on the cheap. Like the Trust is spending money doing these videos, and that's how you do it.
People are shocked that these animated maps, people say it all the time. I want the animated map for Saltville, or I want it for this. Well, okay, for a 6-minute video, we need $40,000.
Yeah.
They
don't realize.
These things are expensive. Luckily, we have some very generous major donors who help us to make it happen. In the case of the 1st and 2nd Manassas animated map we're working on now, the Park Service is chiming in with a good deal of the cash because they can use it in their visitor center, things like that. So, people have no idea, how much. And these virtual reality films are much more than the animated maps. It's just crazy.
That virtual reality, my nephew has one of those goggles. Yeah. Have you ever played with those?
Oh, yeah.
I played some zombie game.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Like one time I was floating in space.
Yeah.
And I swear there was nothing
down
under me. No, I didn't, but it was weird. And I, for the first time, went and experienced what's called a dome or an igloo. And that's where you're in a room, you're not wearing goggles. And the room is the virtual reality.
Yeah.
And it is pretty cool. And it's something we're looking at.
It's amazing. I want to try that Sphere out in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like the big dome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's got to be new. But somebody went and saw... somebody put a video up. I think they went to a U2 concert or something like that, and I could do without the U2, but the visuals behind the band were just amazing.
I got to see like Kobe and Michael Jordan playing basketball in VR. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Like in one of these rooms, it was great.
We really are in an interesting time,
We are indeed, and and it's all just like the musicians of the 60s and 70s when they got like synthesizers. Like we have these digital goodies. Every bit as groundbreaking as what they had, except ours are, they're painstaking and expensive and sometimes hard to access. But it's just like this. And it's important for people like the Trust, even like you at Addressing Gettysburg, to use that technology and push the boundaries to the fullest.
If I had people donating $40,000 a pop, I'd be doing a lot more for sure. Yeah,
I do agree. It is,
That's the problem, though. I mean, it's a lot easier to do that stuff now, but it's still expensive.
Yes.
And
it
it's
was
not-
then too.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was way more back then.
The one thing that's not more is like that we all have a portable television studio
Yes.
now. Now you have all this equipment here that I'm seeing around you, and
Yeah.
ever more, by the way.
Uh-huh.
So support Addressing Gettysburg. They need to
We
keep up
need
with
to
the
keep it
times.
going.
We're lucky that we're national, so we cover all these different sites. We cover 3 different wars, and it helps. But we do have, imagine the days before social media. We can't imagine because we lived them.
We lived them, yeah.
The ability to push messages now is so easy, but you're crowded out.
In the old, that's the problem. In the old days, you'd have to like put a flyer up everywhere in town.
People have no idea. My kids.
No, they have it so easy now. Grant, what the hell do you want?
Sorry, I had 2 questions I didn't ask before. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
They better be good ones, man.
5 questions, Grant.
Yeah, no doubt.
The Trust has done a lot of great work on YouTube this year. And I want to thank Gary and the Chris's and everyone else for all the work. What was your favorite videos to do this year?
It depends. My favorite video released, if I'm correct on the timing, and the favorite shot within it was shooting through and then out the window at Massaponax Church into the Grant scene. God, it is just that, like that and the Sunken Road one with Chris White. Like those released this year, but we shot them before. Some of my favorite shooting, actually, Chris White and I went down to Andersonville. A lot of those videos haven't come out yet. But we went down and shot at Andersonville, that trip where we did, Rocky Face Ridge and some cemeteries around Marietta and Kennesaw Mountain. Those were very meaningful to me. These are experiences that we're having. We're not just, we're producing and releasing the video, but this is 5 days usually of us doing these things. I just love just being, I can't answer this question, Greg, because I'm going to keep going on. I was just out at Franklin and Perryville, and I love both these places. And man, especially Perryville, because it's just about the most pristine battlefield around. Mm-hmm. And, and we had Trace Adkins there at Franklin, and we had a Henry rifle, and we had all these artifacts from the battle. And then when we got out to Perryville, we had more artifacts, and Steve Zahn, my friend, was out there too. And it was just, so I am lucky in what I get to do. One more. I was shooting video. We were shooting video out in Charleston, and we shot some really cool videos. And then I went on a boat ride with one of our trustees, and the boat broke down. But we got stranded right off of Fort Sumter, and I spent 90 minutes just between Fort Moultrie and Sumter, and it was awesome.
How cool is that?
So not exactly a video thing.
That's a fortunate misfortune.
Yeah. Lastly, I think the thing I'm maybe most proud of is the 2.5 years or so it took to make what we call the All Wars animated map. And that's from the French and Indian War through World War II, which is doing very well on YouTube. And part of my brand and the Trust brand is to summarize things and make them simple. And 190 years of war in 50 minutes ain't easy. And that was a tough script to write. Thanks to my friend Daryl for helping with that and getting that all done with our friends at Wide Awake Films. I'm very proud of that.
It is a lot of work, Gary. I know how much work all that takes, and I'm impressed that you guys are able to do it. And obviously you have a team, but still, with a team, that's still exhausting work. You keep churning out good stuff that all of us love. And I have one more thing here, and then Grant. Anything else? I think you said you had 2. Was that 2 or 1? I tuned you out.
Yeah, and just my favorite. I want to shout out Sarah K. Biley for her work on the Newmarket battlefield. That was really well done.
I'll tell her you said so if she doesn't listen. She loves Newmarket. That video did very well. It was the best of our Shenandoah Valley videos for 1864. So she'll be really happy to hear that, Grant. Thanks, man.
All right, Grant, anything else?
Okay, lastly.
Oh,
Jesus. If you ask him what his favorite color is, I'm going to hang up on you.
What was that?
Oh, that's what I was asking. I'm just thinking. I've never really got a simple answer for why on earth the government used the Gettysburg battlefield for a tank training field and a prisoner of war camp, all of that. Of all places, why would they have used Gettysburg?
Well, I would say that A, it's federal land, and the federal government only owns so much land in each area. And B, this is war, man. And if the federal government needs something, make no mistake, they wouldn't hesitate to do that again. In fact, during World War II, they had a hierarchy of which metal things to melt down to support the war first.
Right.
And the monuments were low on that list, but they would have
Yeah.
if they needed the metal.
Cannons too, right?
Yeah, cannons, monuments. I mean, luckily it would have been fences and plaques first. But, you know, if the federal government needs something and it's a war and you're going all in, I would love it if in World War I they would have used another spot, but I understand it. It's
Sure.
not like the federal government has eminent domain easily over fields that size with infrastructure nearby. So I get it.
Also, World War I, it's not National Park Service. It's still in the War Department, correct?
Correct.
And and it's a national military park. It's
Correct.
not a national go jogging park. So it's under the auspices of the War Department.
Yeah, that's good, man. Good point.
See, I could have passed the guide exam if they asked that question.
Maybe you did. Don't give up yet, man.
No,
Remain positive.
Believe me. Thank you. That's very kind of you, but no, I lost. I failed that one. All right, guys. Grant, that's it, right?
I personally think you would make a great guide, Matt.
Nobody
As
disputes
long as
this,
you don't
Grant. You
sing.
just have to do the whole pass the written thing, and that's where I stumble. Okay, Grant.
Farewell.
Grant sits alone in his basement office, watching a dressing Gettysburg. He picks up the phone, hears a dial tone, dials and gets down to his work. Tra la 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 la, Grant makes fun of Matt. Tra la 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 la, calls him bald and fat.
Only on Addressing Gettysburg does a listener get his own song.
That was awesome.
That was amazing. That was the Walk Tallers. Okay.
I just let Gary know I've never made fun of Matt once in the whole time I've watched the show.
Okay. First of all, Gary actually listens to the show. I don't know if he listens to AG today, but if he has, he's heard you make fun of me many times. Okay.
I don't believe that at all, but thank you. Goodbye.
All right, Grant. Thank you. All right, one. Oh, geez. Okay, we have our final super chat here, and then we got to get going, ladies and gentlemen. Lieutenant Dan says, "Are you familiar with the cover photo in Kent Bat Masterson Brown's book, Meade at Gettysburg? Where was this photo taken? Do you know any of? Do you know of any museum for General Meade or Meade artifacts?"
So a couple of things. One, I do know the photo. B, or two, it is. I went from one to B. Two, it is taken at Culpeper near Brandy Station. There's a larger photo of him and his staff all laid out there, and it is taken at Brandy Station, probably not far from the Wallack House. God, now I'm starting to get insecure and think, is it an end of war 1865 shot? And I don't know, but my impression is that it's a Brandy Station 1864 shot. Sorry, Bud Hall, that I'm even second guessing myself. And by the way, if you go to the National Civil War Museum in Harrisburg, they have a life-size version of it. I posed as him, next to him, sort of. I held like I was holding the sword, and you know, and he's wearing the gloves and everything like that. So I would do it. I would say that, you know, there are some Meade objects right here at the Gettysburg National Military Park. They have his Gettysburg hat. They have some other items of his. They have some of that up at the National Civil War Museum. There is no museum to Meade, to my knowledge. There is. There are artifacts at various places, and I've met with one of the descendants, and I got to see some of his stuff as well. But it wasn't like on the level of Meade's hat or anything like that. So that's a little bit of a yes and no, but if you try hard enough, there's some stuff around.
And yeah, also I can give you one. If you're following in the footsteps of Meade's career, Barnegat Lighthouse in New Jersey.
Yeah.
There's a bust of Meade. The last time I was there in the museum, they had like a full cardboard cutout of Meade and some of his writings in relation to the lighthouse. So there's Meade.
Yeah,
have you ever been up there?
No.
It's also the site of a Revolutionary War massacre.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm still getting good on that stuff.
Yeah, it's
I'll say
different.
that, you know, there's the Meade statue in Washington too, just a few blocks away from Hancock.
There you go.
And Matthew Brady Studios in between the two. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Grant says, thanks, Mark and Gary. This has been great.
See, he never gives you a hard time.
No, he doesn't.
He probably put 1 hour in Gary too, I'll bet.
No, he spelled that right.
Thanks, Grant.
2 R's in Mark.
I knew I could trust you. Hey, can I say one more thing?
Of course.
We never got to Hood, like doing, going around to the ride and everything like that. But I just want to say one thing, because this whole time I've been staring at the Tim Cool sticker, which not only do I, but my wife really likes seeing those T-shirts around town and whatnot. Cool.
Yeah.
What I think I would just summarize it by saying what he says. Now, I'm going to ask you, do you want it in Tim's voice or do you want it in my voice to say what he would say?
Can you do a Tim impression?
I mean, I can try.
All right, let's hear that, please. I'll do mine.
I'm going to start out a little bit calm, like to say, like, I think when people ask me about Hood going around to the right, I tell them that it's the stupidest idea that you could ever imagine. Which I think he got in trouble once for saying actually on a tour. I think there was like a Hood fan or something like that. But there you go. Let's hear yours, man.
Well, so I try to get voice, not just the intonation. So let's see. Now I'm going to choke. So it'd be like, because he's a little Jimmy Stewart, right? So and he goes, I think when people ask me if Hood had gone around to the right, I say that it's the stupidest thing he could have done, or something. See,
now that I've heard you do it, I'm going to go ahead and ask your listeners to put in the chat which one was more Tim. And Tim, if you're listening, man, let us know.
And we do it all with love.
Nobody thinks somebody looks or sounds like them. No way.
No.
Nobody thinks.
No.
So
but it is funny. And actually, I don't think Tim sounds like Jimmy Stewart. It's just in order to get close to, and I usually can do it better when I'm not on the spot. But yeah, it's not, but I have to like do Jimmy Stewart to get there, to start with Jimmy Stewart.
That was a self-inflicted wound there.
Which one?
You saying, I'm going to do Tim now.
Yeah, I know. As soon as I said it, I said, shit, I better not do this. But whatever, we did it. The audience says nothing on that yet. If anyone bumps into Gary or Tim in town, ask them about the ghosts in Gettysburg. They love that.
That would be another way to use his voice.
But no, not Grant, sorry. Hood going around to the right. And then we'll take one call from Bill Simpson after that, and then we'll go. Okay. Hood going around to the right. Okay. So I always say that you're going back to the movie, and how, if the movie lights the spark, it's easier to undo the mistakes in that movie than it is, right? So I always know when I'm dealing with a newbie, when they go in a knowing manner, they just should have let Hood go around the right.
Someone put it on my page the other day.
Yeah.
Like those idiots didn't let Hood go around the right.
Right. And that person probably didn't go further than the movie or what do you call it? The Killer Angels, right? Yeah. So we should go to the right. Right, exactly.
Should let me go to the right.
So but I don't mock them. I don't say, what are you, an idiot? No. I say, no. But here's what would have happened if he did.
Yeah.
So what do you say when you're encountered by that?
Well, the first thing I try to do is so first of all, Hood and Longstreet talked about this later in life and said they wanted this. I tend to believe that Hood asked for permission for this, that his protest is sort of real. But these are two or three different things. Are you going right around Big Round Top and hugging Big Round Top and coming up in the rear? Or are you going like Longstreet, 20 miles way out of the way? So these are totally different things, both of which I think are terrible ideas. Again, I'm not a genius because I can look at what did happen and think maybe something else. We all run into people like this all the time. Maybe something other than what didn't work would seem better, And obviously this attack didn't quite do it. Hood would have been completely detached from the rest of the army with the 6th Corps already ordered to that area. And again, people have made them into super people. Like they're going to capture the Taneytown Road. They're going to capture the trains. They're going to organize an attack into the Union rear. They're going to do all this. They just have, it's totally unviable. And then McLaws is the flank all of a sudden.
Right.
The Union's out at the Peach Orchard and McLaws can't take the Peach Orchard then. Then Hood's even further away from his army. So, and Longstreet's one too. Who knows? You're going to split the whole army around, or I think he's hoping that all of Lee will go and follow him out. That seems like a better prospect, but still, they were running out of stuff. They're in enemy territory. The Union Army's bigger than them. The 6th Corps still coming up at that point. So, I just don't think that either are great ideas.
But also, Lee doesn't know. Like, he knows who he can see.
Yeah.
He doesn't know where the missing corps are. Are they sitting in reserve in some low ground that I can't see, or some concealed ground, or are they still on their way, or where are they coming? Because he doesn't have this information yet.
Dude, he has heard it from many a good officer that Stuart has let them all down.
He's just riding up north somewhere, getting his name in the paper.
So I agree. It's also a total like later thing. Pickett's charge. What an idiot. We look at it now. And the same thing done a slightly different way that succeeded, we'd be clapping him on the back saying, what a genius.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't think either of those holds water. If in fact Hood and Longstreet, later in life said that this would have been better, well, if they pushed that later, Lee's dead. What they didn't exactly work. So of course it seems more viable.
Yeah, and memory plays so many tricks on us.
Yeah,
and,
I would add that one of the less read books about Gettysburg that I wish more people would write is Glenn Tucker's Lee and Longstreet at Gettysburg.
Yes.
Okay, where he really gets into those two, and that is included. The Sunrise Attack Order, the going around to the right, is dealt with in there. You don't have to agree with it, but you'll learn a lot more. I really like that book.
I think what seems to be happening in history today, in the history field today, in our little Civil War field, and I observe this when I go to the CWI every year, or just the people that I have on the show, and I talk to them about whatever they're doing now and everything. And I say our generation, even though there's a gap between us here, but we're essentially the same generation. There seems to be a concerted effort or a conscious effort among historians to, I always liken the lost cause to grime on an old painting, that you need to get those Q-tips out and that solution or solvent, and you need to get it all away so you can see the true colors of the image. And I think people are really trying to cast that all aside and get to the nuts and bolts, the reality of what happened in the Civil War. And because and maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't know too many people who are fighting over things in the World War II field. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh my God. I would say on that All Wars animated map I was talking about, people are just destroying us for this and that in a way that is even worse than the Civil War people in certain ways. Now, are they fighting amongst each other? I think so.
Well, they're fighting amongst each other over maybe battles and things like that. But with the loss, for example, I had a comment on one of my YouTube videos the other day. It was that 3 hour and 15 minute long narrative episode, Antietam to Gettysburg, right? And I knew it. I saw the comment, and he gives a timestamp. It's 2 hours and 25 minutes in. And I don't remember what the hell's 2 hours and 25 minutes in. So I have to go and listen to it to see what he's talking about. But I know by what he said where he's coming from and what he's objecting to. And he says, it's all lies. It never happened. And then I go to that part, and sure enough, it's about Lee's soldiers rounding up freed black people and sending them back into Virginia to be sold as slaves, and also about how Lee's army came with about probably 10 or so thousand slaves already with the army. And I knew just by his comment that that's what he is objecting to, because he lives on Mars, and that's not what the war was about, right? And I don't know. I'm not in these fields, but do you find this with other wars, like the American Revolution? Are there Americans who are taking the sides of the Brits on this?
Yeah, I would say there are, but
Americans.
The Civil War it's not unique, but it's got its own flavor in my experience.
Okay.
And I'm not enough into World War II, but I mean, also you're dealing with some of the living too, and writing about the living. There's a reason we stopped that map at World War II. I mean, imagine us including Vietnam and Korea and the Iraqi freedom and things like that, and Desert Storm. So I understand that. I would say that every war is like that, but the Civil War, I mean, those don't necessarily have a book written about it every day for 160 years on average. You know what I mean? So it's different. But I would say some of the dynamics would be the same from what I understand. Now, of course, when you have a foreign enemy versus, all in the same country, that's going to be a different dynamic, That's tough.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Bill, you're on the air with a question about the 11th Virginia Cavalry.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, good afternoon. I've really discovered recently that my great-great-grandfather was in the 11th Cavalry and was at Fairfield on July the 4th. His claim to fame was that he had a horse shot out from under him.
All right.
I'm trying to piece together for my 10-year-old grandson how this all works. So he would have been under Lieutenant General Early under the Army of the Valley. Is that accurate? Is that a good place to start?
Well, if you're talking about Fairfield, no. So if you're talking about Gettysburg, and you're going to test me here because I'm not exactly a Cav guy. So he wasn't under Early until the summer and fall of 1864. Okay. So they're under different commanders at different times. The key would be is to figure out which brigade the 12th is. I'm going to go ahead and guess Jenkins, but it could be Fitzhugh Lee. Matt's looking it up now.
I'm looking it up right now.
And then the division is Jeb Stuart, and of course the Army is Army of Northern Virginia. And remember, this is this is not July 1st. This is a late battle thing, and there's a discrete number of units in there. The Trust has a video that we did with Chris White and Carol Reardon out at Fairfield where we talk a little bit about it. I think it was a little bit more Pennsylvania based. Did you see
Grumble Jones?
I saw it.
Oh God! So
I saw it.
So Grumble Jones. Okay, so you saw that video. I would start studying up that way and learn more about that brigade. Matt's laughing at something that unnerves me.
It's a game Mike and I have called Grumble Jones.
All right, good. I like it already.
I'll teach you if you want.
I don't know exactly what your question is, but I assume you've then looked at the official records. And that you've probably looked for what there is written about Jones's brigade. I think that there's a Gettysburg Magazine article about the fight at Fairfield as well. And then I reluctantly say that Tim Smith, anything that happens at Fairfield is within Tim Smith's purview as well.
Well, I was at Gettysburg 2.5 weeks ago.
Okay.
I took my 10-year-old grandson on his first tour of the battlefield. And we were going down the Confederate Avenue where I saw the marker for Kemper's brigade.
Okay.
And the 11th Virginia artillery's in that. And my grandson threw me a curve and said, where would the cavalry have been during this stage? And I haven't been able to piece it together for him. That's what I'm trying to do.
Well, I'll help you with this. First of all, you can get Leno's map atlas. I think it covers Fairfield, but there is fighting on July 3rd east of Gettysburg at what we call East Cavalry Field. There's fighting south of Gettysburg, what we call South Cavalry Field, although there's not a whole lot of Confederate cavalry there. And then there's going to be this sort of later fight at Fairfield, which involves one Union brigade under Wesley Merritt and then some disparate Confederate elements. So first you got to just, the maps will say where they are when. It's really good at that. You could also look at the Gettysburg Map app, which is online, and it's a subscription. But you can usually play it. And I think he's added Fairfield, but I could be wrong. He might not have added Fairfield yet. But even on the Trust site, we have a Battle of Fairfield map.
Well, I just want to conclude by saying, Gary, you have no idea what an impact you've had on my life. I have watched Wisconsin and what your educational capability, your enthusiasm, and now I want to transfer your enthusiasm to my grandson who lives in Leesburg, Virginia.
All right, give him a lot of vegetables, and I appreciate the kind
Thank
words.
You guys.
I really do.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
You're a hero. Thank you.
Thank you. But what about Gary? All right, so
I will say, I don't know if you feel this at all, and I do have to leave and use the bathroom, but not in that order.
Likewise.
This idea of people always saying nice things about you. I'll tell you what, I work. It's not uncomfortable, but I do have to work to stay grounded, and I really try hard to do that because I've seen people get their heads a little bit too big, and I've never wanted to be that person. But, people say a lot of nice things about us and some mean things too, but they're mostly nice.
Yeah. The mean things I've learned to laugh at. Mm-hmm. The nice things, I have the same problem because I want to think good things about myself and I don't. So I came into this, with a deficit of good feelings towards myself, and everybody's compliments have worked me up to zero.
Way to go.
Now if I can get into the positive numbers, that would be great. But I have to be aware. I always say that I'm glad that this worked out for me in my 40s and not my 20s. Because I would have been an animal in my 20s.
Yeah.
And there are still moments where something happened recently and the how dare you attitude came out. But it wasn't in public. It was, back in my mind.
I get it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But but then I was like, well, who the F am I to these people? I'm nobody. In the pecking order of life. Matt's on the very bottom. Would you like to see a sample before we go of this game that we call Grumble? You don't want to play? You're scared?
No, you know what? I'm ready.
You ready? We're gonna play a little game called Grumble Jones. And,
All right.
You want to join us?
I wish
All
I
right.
had some popcorn.
All right, I'm gonna start off, Mikey. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Here we go. Wesley Merritt. And go.
Beverly Robertson.
Ooh. Okay, you're going there already. Okay. Albion Howe.
Lane.
Lane who? Oh, Lane. Okay, gotcha. Robert E. Lee.
Uncle John Sedgwick.
Wow. Okay. Joseph Latimer.
Strong Vincent.
Grumble Jones.
Oh, well done, Matt.
Wasn't that great?
God, do your listeners understand this more than I do?
It was the throwing.
It's the first time we played it.
Lee that early was something I wasn't ready for.
Well, I'm sorry,
I was
but
looking for connections there, but
we'll have the rules on the website.
we'll explain the rules to you after the show.
all right, man, something to look forward to.
All right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your super chats. We did this, we weren't planning on doing this as a live thing, but we were like, we're going to wing this, so let's just have fun with everybody for the holidays. I hope you enjoyed this. Next year, starting in May, all Ask a Guides are going to be live streamed. We're going to encourage you to call in and talk to the guides one-on-one, but we're going to ask you to be pithy, not like Grant with the 60 different calls and 40 questions on it. I mean, geez, Grant. I don't know what it's like down in Australia, but we're in a hurry up here in the United States. And all that other jazz. But in the meantime, enjoy yourselves. Have a happy holidays. Gary, Christmas and Hanukkah start on the same time this year.
Only for like the second time in my entire life.
Amazing.
And because I want to say it, you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Sam Elliott, very good. That was a very good Sam Elliott impression. No, but really, happy Hanukkah to you and yours.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to all of you out there. Happy Hanukkah. Happy whatever the hell you celebrate. And we'll see you... See you in the new year.
See you on the battlefield.
See you on the battlefield. Later. Thanks, Mike.
Our hearts so stout have got us fame, for soon 'tis known from whence we came. Wherever we go, they dread the name of Garry